Perfect. I see lots of green tick marks. So, welcome everybody to this week's edition of Darko. This is not the webinar of the EMEA-based Developer Advocate Ask Me Anything session. So, what we do in this session is that we take technical questions about AWS as well as general AWS Amazon questions, and we then try and answer them for you. And today we have got Darko and Javier with us. So Javier, you go ahead and introduce yourself first, then not Quibus and Quibus will follow you.
Cool. So Javier Ramirez here, developer advocate based in Madrid and helping developers mostly in Spain and Portugal. I really like data analytics and machine learning, but happy to talk about any other thing with Cobus or not Cobus or whoever it's here today. And I might be a bit of jet lag because I had a live session in APAC time in the morning today. So I have the same session later, and then once again for the US in the evening. So it's a jet lag without traveling, which is kind of
it's a new kind of jet lag.
It's the worst of both worlds, because
Interesting.
Yeah, I mean, scheduling those are difficult because I've also been dealing with scheduling with people in Australia on the one side and then the US on the other side, and then it's a different date. It's like, it breaks me. But not Quibus.
Not Cobus. Hi, I'm Not Cobus, or also known as Darko Mesaros. I'm a developer advocate, as both these two are gentlemen here as well. I'm based in Berlin, Germany. Originally come from the fine Republic of Serbia and somewhere in the south of Europe. I have been working for AWS for 5 years now, almost time for a yellow badge. And I cover Central Eastern Europe and Russia. So and you will see me a lot with this guy over here on camera.
So this guy being Koos Bernard, I am also a developer advocate, and I cover Sub-Saharan Africa, and I'm based out of Cape Town all the way down in the Southern Hemisphere. So howdy everyone, and good morning Ganesh. I believe you are a very frequenter of our different shows and streams. So for those that are joining us now, let me quickly pop on some banners quickly. Let's put this here, boom, on the screen. Now you know what the session is about. So basically this hour is dedicated to our customers to help answer technical questions. But like I said, we are more than happy to also discuss non-technical AWS related questions or software development practices, DevOps, basically throw things at us, and at the worst that can happen is we say, listen, we'd be keen to take this discussion offline. No, Darko, we are not going to be having wars about Vim versus Emacs, and then going Space Max with evil mode.
Never used Emacs in my life, so I cannot say is it good or bad. I know it's an operating system or something like that. It's a social network or something.
No. Don't be like that. Don't be like that. Yes.
But I just have a thing I want to talk about today if we have some off time, because I prepared, right? So
Hey, Kanir is here as well.
Hey Kanir. I've actually had people who are like stringent Emacs users. They're like, Emacs is life and that's it, right? And like I'm not blaming them. I'm not blaming them because Vim is life. So I get it. I get the point, right? So I get how you can get tied to a tool that can help you so much. So yeah.
But maybe kick us off that day while we wait for some questions to come in about the. Sure. I'm assuming it's about Vim.
Yeah,
it's
about Vim. Hey, Marcia. Hi, Marcia. Hey, welcome to the stream. So I got this amazing book by Mr. Jovica Ilic. It's a book called Mastering Vim Quickly. And when you say quickly, I mean it's quick. It's 160 pages. It took me a day to read. And even for me, who am I would say I'm relatively experienced with Vim. It has enabled me to learn more stuff than I know from Vim. So highly recommended. And I am a what is that? That's a big book. I know which book is that. Yeah. So I'm a big fan of that. And I heard somebody to say, save time, learn Vim, right? So if you want to save your time from learn Vim, because Vim will help you do things much faster. once you learn it. Well, if you don't like Vim and you have no time to learn it, you will struggle. But I think the actual developer of Vim said, Bram Molenaar, he said it's difficult to learn driving a car, but that doesn't mean you will keep on driving your bicycle just because it's difficult to learn to drive a car. So learn Vim.
Yes.
But yeah. So Javi, the book. I
Well, I'm quite impressed by Ganesh because Ganesh saw the book like briefly and he's like, yeah, it's the Julian book. So now I'm guessing Ganesh is not really a person; it's an artificial intelligence.
He used that book to build a bot, and that bot does image recognition on any object. Exactly what's happening here.
I like that inception. So basically here, this is a book that our colleague Julian wrote about Amazon SageMaker. It's pretty cool. I happen to have a copy because I was lucky to be one of the reviewers of the book, so I got a copy early on. And it's super cool because if you are starting with SageMaker, it gives you a lot of interesting information that it's hard to find sometimes. Some of the things in the book, actually, I believe they're not really documented because there are some tricks and tips and so on. So it's pretty cool. If you are beginning with machine learning, it might not be the best book because it's not an intro to machine learning. So if you come into the book trying to learn about the basics and algorithms and so on, you are going to be disappointed, so disappointed. But if you already know some machine learning, you are starting with SageMaker, you want to make things better, it's a very cool book that you can just give it a try. It's published by Packet, so if you have like any subscription to Packet or Safari Books or whatever, you can read online. If not, it's available on, I believe there is a bookshop called Amazon.something, so you can find it there.
What's great about it is that we can actually vouch for the author because we know him. It's like it's weird because it's not like we're shilling for him, but he really does know his matter. So the book is like it's coming from a person who didn't write a book for no reason, right? So it is very much a good book. So
if you don't want to buy the book, actually there are a lot of talks of Julian and his blog is super cool also. Some of the things that you can find in the book are refinements over some of the talks or some of the posts he already did. So you can also get a lot of information from Julian without having to spend money.
So quickly, Ganesh has got an interesting point here. That says if you buy the physical book from Pact, you get the ebook for free. So, for example, for me, this is useful to know because shipping books to South Africa is usually very expensive and extremely slow, and sometimes it doesn't get there. So, for example, if you look at that post in the background from our EMEA Summit, you don't know about it, Javier, but it was posted in June and it arrived here at the end of August only. Yeah. So sometimes things take a bit of time or get lost. So for me, this is awesome. So I think I'm going to order this book and just have it delivered at one of your addresses, and then we'll catch up again when one day we start traveling again.
You can send it to me. It's fine. You're welcome.
Darko, it's a book. It's not my keyboard.
Come on. You can set the keyboard
as
well.
I will at some point, but I need to practice. No, it's I got a mechanical keyboard, one of those split ones, and I'm used to a natural keyboard where the key columns aren't. It's not a column; they go like that. So my muscle memory is used to that, and now I'm finding it exceedingly difficult to type on this one. So I'm kind of like,
Practice, right?
Yeah.
Repetitio es mater studorum. So there you go.
Yes.
Cool. Alex, Masha, hey, welcome.
Yeah. Welcome. Yes. Awesome. So for those that have joined in the last few minutes, please ask us technical questions. Otherwise, we will ramble on about random things. I think what I will do is let us start with Javier this time. Tell us about this 3 time zone event that you're doing.
Yeah.
What is it and what's the content about?
Sure. So there is we have this really, really nice customer at AWS. They are called OutSystems, and they are originally from Portugal, but now they operate from the US. They are quite big. They are one of these unicorns, and they are super big on low code. So if you need to build an application and you don't want to spend time developing the application, if you just want to, click things around and create forms visually and integrate with many services, you can actually use OutSystems for that. And they are quite big, actually. And they are running their own event, 2 days event in 3 different time zones. And they kindly invite me to talk about machine learning integrations with our system. So I was presenting about the high-level services we offer, because we don't really market them as low code. But if you think about things like recognition or like I don't know, like transcribe to translate a speech into text, or Amazon Translate, or one of these, like, or Poly to speak, in different voices. So those services are powered by machine learning, but you don't really need to do any code. You only have to call an API, and then you get the results. So I was speaking about those services and how from our systems, just issuing a RESTful API from their tool, you can add more power to your application without needing to know any machine learning, because those are available directly as APIs. So yeah, hopefully it will be interesting for the audience. We had a lot of interesting
Okay.
examples. Yeah. I had Polly
No,
speaking
that's awesome.
in voice, Polly speaking as a child, as a teenager, and kind of, which is kind of cool, because if you're doing if you're generating voice, I remember just a few years ago, voice generation was super super clunky. It was like, hello, press
It
one,
wasn't.
press two.
I am Dr. Spade, so I am here to help you.
Cool. But if
I still
you,
have the speech. I still have the speech synthesis
Uh,
one on Amiga, right? That uses the
uh,
old Amiga speech
yeah,
synthesis. I remember. Wow.
but if you look now at the kind of voices you can do with Poly, it's super cool, man. I didn't know that, but
Yeah.
actually, especially in US voices, because the other languages always take a bit longer, but US and Spanish from Mexico, they have voices with kids, teenagers, men, women. They are super cool, man. It's really 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 it's a bit
and
eerie.
it's I also found it's useful to be able to use different accents even if you want to do English. So for
Yes.
example, not just sticking with US English, which is sometimes, if you're not used to the accent, it can be hard. Using like a French accent with English, it actually helps train your ear. I found.
Yeah,
It's
I'm
interesting.
looking forward to the day you can have, like, a South African accent. So for errors, like, if you do something wrong, like, because right now I do that with British. It's like, it sounds like
Oh,
bit,
wow.
yeah, but it would be cool with South African, like, singing.
I
You
can
know,
I can help you with that. It means you clicked on the wrong button, eh? You mustn't do that.
But yeah, which South African accent? That's also a question, right? Is it the
Hey,
is it
brute, don't be like
the,
that, brute. It's very chill here, hey.
yeah.
exactly so many South African accents? But apparently, somebody told me that it takes a long time and a long effort to actually introduce a new voice into Poly. It is quite an effort to do, but it is amazing. I must say, first time I heard like the British voice on Poly, it was like very uncanny. I'm like, oh, this sounds so real. I mean, you can notice it that it is actually a computer voice, but at moments, especially if somebody does it good with all the breaths and stops and whatnot, if you properly structure the sentence with that, how's it called, that syntax? There's this special syntax they use for
Yeah, I've actually done that. Those
yeah.
files where you add the phonetic spelling and pronunciation. That's
Well,
actually
even
super fun.
yeah, even that, but you can do like pauses and breaths and speed up and
Oh,
increase. Like, yeah, you can do those things. And if you like frame a sentence
um,
that way, it sounds very realistic.
Lexi something.
I don't know, no,
It's a file
but
name, yeah.
yeah,
Mm.
but it is very powerful. Like, you can potentially fool somebody with it thinking it's an actual person. But yeah,
Mm.
that's very cool.
Yeah, no, definitely. Awesome. Yeah, so what else? Doctor, you just did a webinar, I believe.
Yes, just finished. It finished 14 minutes ago.
Hmm.
I did a webinar on called or titled "Building in the Cloud." It's the part of the Sub-Saharan Africa webinar series. It's an Sub-Saharan Africa awesome week. Awesome week. Yes, something not webinar series, but it's an awesome day turned into an awesome week.
Yeah.
And my session was session number 3, where I talked about building in the cloud, which is a bit of a vague term, but it basically is expanding on just the basics. So what is the next step after you build your first EC2 instance and install Apache and MySQL on it? How can you actually make it much better using such things like hosted databases, utilizing auto-scaling, load balancing, CloudWatch, and doing like things like, what is it? What did I do? Route 53, yes, DNS, those things. So it was nice. And I think it's the longest webinar I did because it lasts 59 minutes. So it's just
Wow.
just on the border of being too much. Because like I had to basically set up my set up all the demos. I think there's 4 demos in it. So interesting. But it's good. It's good.
Darko, can you share the link there? I know you've got a bit.ly shortened link because it's one of those URLs like that normally that it'll share quickly. So Alex Smasher, what we'll do is if you register for it, it'll send you a link to some of the sessions. We'll have to figure out exactly how to access it, but just ping us again if you don't get the link to that session. We are currently in a cleaning the closet mode where we are moving things around. Normally there's a single location for all of this content. That it will come back, but until it's literally just rearranging and changing platforms and things. We're not really involved with that. It's on the marketing side. Although, if you want to know a secret, we are all in marketing here.
Yeah, exactly. So I think this is going to be somewhere on the content. No.
It won't be coming up there.
No, it's not going to be coming out there, but it's going to. If you register, you should get emails to the recordings, right? And if you don't get emails to the recordings, let us know. We'll figure something out.
But good news here, just quickly before I ask Javier about the open source day that's coming up, is that this is actually something that I'm actively working on. Is where can we make it easy to discover and share our technical content? Because often feedback we get from the customers and developers are that, hey, listen, I want to get the developer technical content where you show us stuff, not the more marketing product overview type sessions and all that. And we are busy tackling that, and I'm trying to figure out the best way to expose that information. So hopefully in the next few months, there will be a very nice way to do this.
And there's actually something I can share. Just give me, you can keep on talking. I'll share the link in here. I can share my, the GitHub repository of the, hey, it's up. It's regarding the webinar, Cobus. It's for your region. So it's the GitHub repo for the webinar I did. Basically, there's 4 demos I've did there built in AWS Cloud Development Kit. So CDK fans, get it. So
awesome. I'm also concerned because I see kernel memory dump has got a emoji of me. Now, why I'm concerned is this is not the first time this has happened to me at places, and it's normally.
That comes from my channel. My channel for all followers has the Cobus emote. So if you subscribe or if you follow my channel, I think anybody can get that. If you follow my channel, you'll get the little Cobus emote. Yes.
Normally the way that emoji was used in Slack is that if I wouldn't approve of something, they just flag the comment with that, because I tend to be slightly difficult sometimes when I want standards and how we should be building things. But I will take this as a good thing.
So Cobus, you have to do it on your channel. You have to make my emoji as well. So there you go.
Yes. But sidetrack. Javier, tell us about, because I believe you're involved in the open source day that's coming up on the 17th of September. So
I'm just one of the speakers. Yeah, actually that's it. So we are having an EMEA wide open source dev day, which is as you said, we are going to be speaking not from the sales point of view, but just purely from the technical point of view. And I'm just one of the speakers. The track has been actually put together by Ricardo, one of our colleagues, which is a specialist in open source in the team, and he was like speaking to different people. And so I'm not sure if I can share the URL. I have it right here, but not sure I can write on the chat. Let me just pass it to Cobus.
Pass it to me. I'll quickly I'll quickly do a bit.ly for it.
Yeah, so I'm doing that.
Cool.
So basically, the days tomorrow, we have 4 sessions. And one is going to be about how you work with Kubernetes and networking and so on, which is kind of interesting, I believe, if you are, of course, into Kubernetes, because networking is an interesting topic. So if you're using the CNIs and all those things, that's actually pretty cool. And The speaker is going to be Liz Duke, which is a solution architect in the UK. And then I'm speaking actually about how you can host if you're using Apache Flink for streaming data. You actually have a few options to run that on top of AWS. You can use Apache Flink just on EC2. You can use Apache Flink with containers on Docker or with Kubernetes. You can use Apache Flink on top of EMR as a managed service, or you can use Apache Flink on top of Kinesis. So basically what I'm doing on the session is deploying Apache Flink in all ways possible on AWS using different services and just comparing what's good and what's not that good about the different options, which are the trade-offs when you have an open source pipeline with Apache Flink and you want to go production with that. Then we have Angie, which is our specialist on machine learning also, and she's going to be speaking about Kubeflow with Kubernetes. So basically how you can automate your machine learning pipelines using Kubeflow. And then we have Robert, which is another Rebel advocate, who is going to be speaking about type safety with React, GraphQL, and TypeScript. So we have a little bit for everyone. A lot of Kubernetes there, one way or another, some streaming data, and some more front-end side of things. So everything open and everything, from the spirit of sharing and how you can build things that you could actually port to other providers or host yourself because it's open source.
Cool. So quickly, two things that have come up now in the chat. Quickly, I just want to bring that up. Sorry, thank you for that first, Javier.
That's okay.
My coffees are still kicking in, so I might be a little bit, and I'm trying to keep show notes as well because we're trying to be a little bit more organized with our streams to also share all the details of what we chat. So what I want to do here quickly is bring up this comment by William Dampier. I think I'm setting it up. There we go. There is so that's actually quite a nice one in terms of a quick start for hosting it. And Marcia, I see you've posted a link as well. Can you quickly send that to me on internal Slack, and then I'll post it to all the channels because we're currently streaming across a couple, and I'll also add it to the show notes. Amplify is actually quite fun. I also did a video recently-ish. No, I'm not pasting the link yet, Darko, so I don't have to put money in. It actually, I built a Hugo site.
Talking about it.
Yes, but I'm talking, but I'm not. I might be self-promote. Wait, what does the jar says? Okay, fine. I'll put money in. It just says self-promote jar. Okay. So Javier, in case you were wondering how this works, is that every time you want to reference one of your own projects or your own site or your own stream or something, money. But base unit of the currency that you are currently using where you live. So I'll put in R1, and you two can put in €1 each. And just quickly, the exchange rate for rand to euro, I think, is 22 at the moment, to put into context. Cool.
But you tricked me there because you were asking about the Open Dev Day. It was not me offering. So no.
I tricked you there, yes. But I mean, for those kind of things, remember, that's not a self-promo, that's an AWS event. There's a difference between that and, hey, come look at my YouTube channel, and hey, come look at my stream. But that's fine. We are streaming across all of our different streams at the moment. It's actually, I think this is one of the bigger ones we've done. We are currently streaming on 6 locations. So if you are listening to us and you're seeing us react to things, that might be because you're coming from different locations. Yes, Marcia, you will be very poor after streaming. Speaking of, that's Marcia, our teammate based in Helsinki, who's commenting over here, and she will be poorer because she just sent a link for us for that YouTube playlist. Copy link, and let me paste it in here. Here we go. So that's Marcia's playlist for Amplify and AppSync, with a couple of videos that she's done. So Marcia, I will be sending the cup around and getting your money from you in a bit. But yeah, let me quickly just double check it because we've had a bit of chat here as well. There was a nice link as well I saw you from Ganesh around, yes, this tweet for Nader. There we go. Darko, stop showing us your weights.
I got a PC. I got a computer now.
Oh, okay, tell us about it.
It's Windows 98. It has floppies.
No, those aren't floppies. Those are stiffies, according to South Africans.
Stiffy disks, yeah. So it's a Windows 98 machine, and I am very excited. But yes, that's why I left for a second, because I had somebody ringing at my door.
Oh, awesome. No, it's fun. We're chatting on one of the other streams, and I actually Found my very first laptop that I bought in 2010. Doesn't have a power brick, so I need to go look at my big box of cables. I've got one literally. It's I think a 200-liter container that's full.
Wow.
You have to sit on it to close the lid, and that's just one. I've got 2 or 3 smaller ones as well. So yes, I've got a problem. I don't throw away cables.
Nobody does. What? Everybody has a box of cables. Like that's the default, right? If you don't, are you even an engineer? What? I mean, a box or a drawer of cables, it has to exist.
That and my jar of computer screws, because I've got, because literally every single time I did a PC build, because at one point when I was studying, obviously you've got no money, so you have to do something to get money. And I took one look at like waitering. I'm like, that seems like a lot of work for not that much money. Let me see if there's a better way. And I found that, people don't like assembling PCs. So I sold PCs.
I did the same. So I've in my high school years, I've assembled PCs for around, or actually installed Windows for around €9 a PC. So that was my like going rate back then. So hey, it was money in the pocket, so I was really
Exactly.
happy. And I still to this day know the serial number, not serial number, the product key of Windows XP. So I still know to this day by heart.
And that's not the 1, 2, 3, 4 one that worked. Was that
no.
Starcraft?
This is the proper one. Oh, I still Jesus.
It's one of those you can't say it, but you can type it.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. Speaking of that, Darko, I believe you did this recently, and it's one of those like, if you ask me now, I can't tell you how, which is, how do you actually install Windows 10? Because I haven't done it for 3 or 4 years now, because I upgraded from previous versions, and I realized I want to completely reinstall my desktop.
Okay.
And I have no idea.
So you basically need one of the flash drives I had around. You can get the ISO for free. That's one thing. You can get the Windows 10 ISO for free. That's available just basically on Microsoft site. Set it up on USB. Now I think there's a Microsoft tool to do that as well. There's also Balena Etcher. Balena Etcher is a tool as well, but I use Rufus or Rufus or whatever.
Oh yeah, I've got Rufus. Yeah.
Yeah, I use Rufus and Rufus. Yeah, that's kind of my favorite tool for that thing. And just burn it up, burn it or copy it to a USB drive, and it works. I mean, it's relatively simple. The problem I have with Windows and modern systems in general, and that's my struggle for this morning, is UEFI.
Oh yeah.
Listen, okay, I know we moved from IDE cables and master/slave disks. Fine, okay, jumpers, they're horrible, right? But why did we move from master boot record to UEFI? It's so complicated. It messes things up. Installing systems on top of each other. So I have my Windows system running with my Linux system on my desktop. It was perfect, right? And yesterday I decided to install the new Linux OS, and it completely overwritten my UEFI. So and I'm complaining here because it's not because, well, it's probably okay, but I just suck at it, right? I'm bad. I don't know how to use UEFI, and it overwrote my Windows UEFI. So I had to set up a Windows USB key and boot into recovery mode and do BCD edit and copy UEFI from the Windows install and set up and it's like, why is this so? Why? Who is there a benefit to UEFI? I mean, I don't know of, right? I was super happy with MBR. You just point it at the disk. There's a boot sector at the disk. Boot that. I don't really care. But now it's you have to have multiple things, and if you don't have enough room on a UEFI partition, and your Linux kernel image is too big, doesn't work. So.
Whatever the size is, I just remember normally at least quadruple this amount of size that they recommend, because you will want to upgrade your kernel, and then you will be screwed again.
Yeah.
So quickly, this is an interesting one that came up. I know Darko's actually looked at this. Curious, Javier, is there any things or movement around doing, for example, data analytics or machine learning stuff on ARM architecture that you know of? Because given that everybody seems to be focusing on how to run on ARM, I haven't actually seen anything from my side with data analytics and things. Or do you know about anything?
Well, one of the things we announced recently is that now with RDS, you can actually choose ARM-based machines.
Yep.
So Postgres, if you run Postgres, for example, on top of ARM, you get an interesting boost in performance. So you can pay less for the same, results.
Wow.
So yeah, Postgres, for example, is one of the ones. I've seen some, some people running parts of the Hadoop ecosystem also on top of ARM. So I guess it will be a matter of time until we also offer ARM integration in other parts of the platform. But for example, yeah, on RDS, it's already officially supported. And yeah, for what I say, it's every project in which you are using ARM instances, it instantly gets you better performance, which is super interesting.
That's actually good to know. And so, quick one here, and I think Darko, you can add to this. Is you played with the T4 instances recently?
Yeah.
And I think also specific shout out here for those that are not aware. Till the end of the month, until the end of the year, that we get free minutes or free hours on.
On what?
Sorry, I'm just thinking quickly. It is. I'll find the announcement quickly while you talk about your experience. But there is, even if you've had your 12-month free tier on AWS, you are getting free minutes for the new Graviton instances.
Yes.
Yep.
You can play with it. So I mean, I'm always fascinated with ARM, right? In general, so I'm a big fan of having a player 3 has entered the game. When it comes to computing, it's not only Intel and AMD. We have ARM now, especially as a separate architecture. And the fact that these Graviton's processors are produced by us, right, by Amazon. We have a company, Annapurna Labs, that makes them and that designs them and makes them, and we can kind of optimize them quite a bunch for the cloud, and you can get them cheaper. And that's the point of ARM. You get, I think, 40% price per performance when it comes to ARM compared to like non-ARM CPUs. So even though maybe instance per instance, if you compare T4G large versus T3 large, maybe T3 large will be better, but T4 is that much cheaper that you will get more performance. And until now, people were kind of consoled to using, hey, you can only use M6G and C6G when it comes to ARM or Graviton 2 instances. Now, if you want the cheaper ones, you can do the T4G now. So and especially because a lot of things run on ARM, right? A lot of things are already available on ARM. If you want to run general purpose workloads, even I think containers can run on ARM, right? So you can use them as ECS hosts easily. So
one of the things that changed there recently, I know it's been on Docker for a while, but Amazon ECR now supports the architecture when you do the pull with Docker. So if you've got, I'm not exactly sure which version, but you just say pull that copy of the container, because one repository can now have multiple architectures inside it and actually knows which one you're pulling. So it's super useful for just saying, listen, grab that and run it. Because especially with ARM, if you think languages like, I know Go, you can specify the target architecture very easily and just cross-compile to that different architecture.
Exactly. So, I mean, and a lot of tools can actually compile to ARM, right? So, I mean, for example, one of the first things I did on this instance is I've set up NeoFetch, because you have to have NeoFetch, and NeoFetch is this lovely utility that shows a screen, basically prints a logo of the OS and like sets information on it. So it's kind of a show-off tool. And I compiled it. I basically compiled it from source. There is no native ARM binary, so I pulled the repo. I think there's a single requirement, and that's you have to have CMake 3.2, and there's a CMake 3.2 for ARM. It works. You just make it, and it just runs. So now, and Ganesh actually shared here the Phoronix benchmarks. Phoronix is a Linux, well, not pure Linux, but it's mostly used on Linux when it comes to benchmarking systems. And Phoronix, you can basically you can test your system in Phoronix and upload the benchmark online, and you can see the differences between multiple systems. And the benchmarks are specific, right? You can do things from compiling a Linux kernel to doing Firefox compilations to doing Blender and whatnot, right? So, it may be a great way to test it out. And I'm a fan of this. Like, again, think about it. If you're going to run an Apache web server on EC2, there's no reason for you not to run it on ARM. Hello, doggy. So there's no reason for you to run it not to run it on ARM. So it's cheaper. That's the point, right? So I think especially at scale, that's going to be just much better.
Yeah, no.
Sorry about
one
that.
thing is like no. Oh yeah, no, that's okay. Yeah, it's so I was saying the 40% number. It's like 40% increase. That's a good number. But when I was seeing some benchmarks, it really depends on the workloads you are running, of course. So for some of the workloads I was seeing, it was only 16%. In some others, it was actually over 40. So it really depends. For example,
yeah.
if we are speaking about big data, sometimes your bottleneck is not CPU, it's input and output. And for those cases, you're still going to get some improvement because I believe we have some IO also performance boost on the new instances, but it might not be as big. So yeah, the best thing is to do is just, give it a try. It's the cool thing about cloud. It's easy to try out things, so that could be interesting. And I just checked the announcements we did on reInvent, and back then we were saying that Elasticast and EMR at some point they will also support the M6G instances. So it's not there yet, but at some point, it's planned that both Elasticast and EMR will actually support it.
Awesome. And I'm going to throw this comment to you, Javier, since I'm assuming you're able to. Is that how are you?
How are you?
Yeah, something like that. Yeah. Hola, Nau. Va todo bien. Puedes decir lo que quieras. Aquí no se entera nadie. Así que tú, yo pondré cara de que es algo correcto. That's okay. I say you are all good people. Yeah, you're all good people.
Okay, dis absoluut geen probleem nie. Ek is baie bly as ons aan tafel wil begin praat en die mense die mekaar maak. So kom ons doen dit nou vir 'n rukkie, okay?
No hablar español, solo inglés. And Koba, stop speaking Spanish, please.
Yeah, no.
Exactly. It makes sense. I mean, when does it not make sense? I mean,
well, when you don't have apps in that architecture, that's reason number one.
Exactly. So that's if you don't have binaries for it, or if you cannot compile it for ARM. I mean, otherwise, okay. So there might be some specific high power HPC workloads that work better on x86 systems because I don't know, x86. But general workloads, so running web servers, even running databases right now, it is much. I mean, it's you will be able to run it, and especially at a lower cost. And you can see here, this is the ARM, this is the T4G medium instance that I'm running here, as you can see. So, and I was able to compile NeoFetch. So, if I go cat proc CPU info, yeah, you will see that it is can you see it? No, you can't see it. I don't know. You can't see information on this CPU. Interesting. But yeah, that's basically it. But Javier, have you tried this thing to run? Have you tried it on the database, the running ARM instances on RDS? Is there any difference to how it runs?
From the functional point of view, there is no difference.
Okay.
But if you have high throughput, then yeah, you are getting. For that's the thing. Like for many users are not really going to notice a boost in performance because let's be realistic. We are not all, the unicorn company. You fantasize with having that amount of traffic, but in real life, you are not really pushing your database server to the limits. But it's going to get cheaper. So that's the immediate thing you notice is just cheaper. So you might not notice it's better, but yes, you pay less.
When we say price to performance, it doesn't mean that the instance is faster. It means you get the same performance or roughly the same performance for less money. So to an extent. So it's, again, there is no exclusive requirement for you not to do it unless, again, you don't have binaries for running on ARM. And I would be happy to run things on ARM. Again, the only thing that would prevent me from doing anything on ARM is like, I can't compile this to run on ARM, right? So, and that happens as well, right? Maybe an old version of MySQL doesn't run on ARM, but yeah. But I'm happy to see much more of this, and I hope to see ARM processors in the desktop. So
let's have a look here quickly. Yeah, so interesting comment here with Ganesh is that just remember that the Graviton processors, given that it's new hardware, is still in the process of, like all our services, being rolled out globally. It's one of the nice things about AWS that I really appreciated as a customer is that we didn't release services like Big Bang, global, boom, immediately necessarily. It's like usually it's a phased rollout so we can learn and make sure everything is working properly. It's just a better experience than, hey, here it is, but it's broken.
Yeah, exactly. So if you try to launch a massive cluster of ARM instances, You may run into problems, because I'm not sure how big the capacity is for ARM instances right now. So it scales with usage. So that's very important to take note of.
Yeah. Cool. Let's have a look here quickly. We had this ARM discussion is quite interesting. So I think I'm actually going to put money in the jar and say, listen, Darko, let's go play with ARM on Friday, and
Let's do it.
do it on Bean Streaming.
I have
So
my ARM here. What?
I got two.
Well, I mean,
Yes, dad jokes. Be careful.
it's gonna cost you an arm and a leg. You know that.
Someone stop this, please.
Fine.
And Cobus is the
I
dad
will.
here. I don't have the
Yes,
kids
but
here.
just remember, Darko, be very, very careful what you say. I am armed and dangerous.
Stop it, Cobus.
Oh, bye.
Yeah, I saw here someone asking when is Poly getting Spanish from Argentina, and I think this gives me the opportunity to, to tell a bit more how developer advocacy works, because you might have this romantic idea that we developer advocates are on top of everything,
Yes.
and we have secret access to the roadmap, and you want to kidnap us, to get confidential information before it happens. It doesn't go that way. Most of the times
We will never tell.
we have no idea of what's coming or when. If by error we know, we cannot tell you. But it really happens that most of the time we don't really have insights about these details on when something is being released or even which things are on development. Once in a while we get some updates from teams that want us to try things out or things like those. But in general, if you are not aware of a public beta that you can register, chances are we are not aware either. So hopefully soon. I know Paul has been getting more and more languages, and of course Spanish from Argentina, it's a big one, but I have no idea when that's coming.
So Javier, how different is Spanish from Argentina compared to like other Latin American Spanish? I know it's a Italian influenced Spanish, let's call it that way. At least that's how my Argentinian friends used to explain it to me. So
it really depends. I mean, there are a few countries around South America that might have some similarities to Argentinian accent.
okay.
But then but it's not only about the accent. It's also about the some words mean completely different things, which is always like very comic, of course, as you can imagine. So some words mean completely different things. But yeah, the accent is quite different. It's quite so if you are from Spain and you listen to someone from Argentina, someone from Mexico, and someone from Venezuela, they are quite different accents. So you can find different countries that cluster together, but there are like 4 or 5 different large groups, I will say. Yeah.
I can only imagine how different that is, especially it should be the same, but it's not. Hey Dennis is on chat. Dennis is our colleague as well. Hello Dennis. What the Hadoop are we talking about? We are talking about
ARM processors and
ARM
not making dad jokes.
processors, without making dad jokes and all the things. Yeah. So and we talk about Poly, and we talk about books and SageMaker and Vim and UEFI and Windows installations and I still haven't talked about my Linux Gentoo installation, but that's
Maybe take a quick segue, because I've got a very, very special place in my heart for Gentoo, because that was my first Linux experience. I went from Windows XP straight into Gentoo, not knowing Linux, which was super interesting, and then ran it for 4 years as a desktop.
Yeah. Well, so Linux Gentoo has always been this meme like, you're having trouble with Windows, just install Gentoo, right? But Gentoo is a very, I would say, in quotes, a very complex system to set up, because it requires you, it used to require you to compile your own kernel, set up your own kernel parameters, and a whole bunch of things, right? It
doesn't anymore?
You have GenKernel. Basically, GenKernel just makes a generic kernel for you and works. So
what's the point then?
Exactly.
If you don't struggle.
I ran GenKernel because I wasn't sure if it's going to run on my processor. So is it going to run on my system? So I just ran GenKernel on my end. So I decided, I was actually inspired by Jovica, the guy who wrote the Vim book, and he's a big Gentoo fan. And when I was reading the book, I'm like, I can just try a Gentoo again, because I did it long time ago. So last night I went on an embankment where I'm going to say, I'm going to install Gentoo for myself. And I started like 6 p.m. in the afternoon, and I finished I think it finished at 4 a.m. this morning. One thing you need to know about Gentoo: Gentoo is a completely source-based system. Everything you install on Gentoo is compiled. So even on, I have a desktop here that runs a AMD Ryzen 3950X. So it has 32 threads. It has 32 gigs of RAM. It has a 2080, and it's a really powerful system. But just to install the base without the graphical user interface, without X11, without anything, it took like 2 hours to compile 250 packages. So it takes a while. Then I added like X11 and KDE and whatnot just to try it out. And it also took like 4 or 5 hours. So, and I actually found out that I'm doing it wrong. So, got a lot of, I was doing some reading on Gentoo and how people do Gentoo. And one of the comments on a forum was like, oh, so how long does it take to install Gentoo? Oh, like, it takes me 30 minutes, but it takes like 8 days, because what people do is they basically, I'm not sure what they do. They set up these things, basically like lists of packages they want to install, like Emerge. I'm not sure where that is set up. They set it all up. So actually they do an initial bootstrap without anything, just SSH into the system and run it. And then it takes 8 days to compile everything. And then after 8 days, your system is ready and you're good to go. So it's been an adventure. I've kind of hoped that I was going to be able to sit next to my computer and make it work, but it doesn't work that way. It takes a lot of time, and I can vouch that 2 years ago, I tried to do the same on my i5 3rd gen. It took 9 hours to compile Firefox. So yeah.
Quickly, to grab that question that I've got on the screen here, just to answer it. Firstly, Ariel, I'm not sure how to pronounce the last bit, but no, not a dumb question at all. And yes, you can actually run Docker. If you, let me pop that link here. So there, I just did a quick look. You can actually get the official Node.js, not necessarily the official Node.js. Let me just confirm that, because this does look like it's another specific user. The user is ARM64v8. So I can see specific containers for it, which means that you should be able to find the runtime for ARM, which means yes, you can actually run them.
The only thing I would add here is it has nothing to do with ARM. It has to do with the T4 type instance. Mind you, T instance types are burstable instance types. So if you run a workload that's constantly under heavy load, T3 E instances are not for you, because you're going to run out of CPU credits and you're going to be throttled. So it's very important that you choose the right instance for the right job, because T4 are good for, or T instances in general are good for burstable workloads, something that does something at one point and then it's kind of idle at other points.
So there was that one. There was another question here that quickly passed. By the way, thanks Ganesh for also helping out there in the chat. Here's a fun one. How do I check if my images can run in ARM? There, I would say you would need to do, what you can do is when you fire up the kernel, or when you fire up the image, I mean, I don't think a Docker container for x86 will actually even start on ARM architecture. It'll just fail. So that's normally an indication. So I think if the container can come up, that's a good indication that it'll work. But also, I think just start searching for seeing if whatever container you want has got a ARM64 architecture option available. It might be transparent nowadays. I think I'm not sure which version of Docker has it, but if you just pull, it'll send along the architecture that you are running on. And if you can't find an image for that architecture, it shouldn't do the pull, I believe.
Yeah, exactly. So
cool.
And also Docker Hub has very clear, I think, information which platform is this image for. So
yeah, cool. Alrighty then. Oh, sorry, I bumped my mic. Let me just quickly scan over here. I have been keeping most of the show notes as well. For those that are joining a little bit later, we missed the half-hour mark for the what are we doing here today announcement. But we are doing an AMA type session where we are basically answering any questions that you have, technical or even non-technical, about AWS and Amazon and general. So please send us questions through in the chat if you want us to take a look at those. I can see we've got quite a number of people on the various channels. So yeah, if you don't see a question necessarily, we will always try and pop it on the screen. But yeah, please use the comments, chat to us, ask us questions. Now we have had a nice little Gentoo geek out, which was me and Darko. Javier, what else have you been working on that's been interesting, or what interesting questions have you had the last, let's say, week or so from customers?
So, well, from customers lately, I got one today, which was not maybe technically was not super insightful, but it was interesting because I was presenting different things you can do with AWS machine learning and so on. And someone asked me, "Hey, that's cool. You saw a few demos, but how can I get inspiration from real things that you can do with the services?" And I just pointed to the to the customer use cases we have on AWS. You can Google for that, AWS customer use cases. And it turns out we have a solutions page with a lot of interesting information from a lot of customers with different services. So you can quickly see real companies telling you what they are building. And of course, in most cases, they don't give you a lot of detail. They just tell you like, no, generically, okay, so we are now able to serve more people or save money or dedicate our time to other things. But we have actually a solutions page in which you can directly with CloudFormation templates deploy some examples of real life architecture. So you can go there and check for solutions on, I don't know, streaming data or data lakes or security or whatever floats your boat. And then you have curated by solution architects templates that you can click and deploy and play with that. And I think that's interesting.
Jeepers.
Because you can
That
really
sounds awesome.
see, yeah.
Have you got a link for us to share?
Of course I have it. I mean, I don't, but Google have. So let me just for a second.
Let me just quickly find it, because that actually sounded, especially that blueprinting, because it's one of the interesting things. I recently did some webinars on data analytics and setting up a data lake and all of that. And the first part, and when I scheduled these, I had not yet looked at lake formation. And then just with timing, because we normally schedule webinars and things quite well in advance, I ended up doing a webinar about lake formation a while before I did the webinar just on Kinesis, Firehose, and Glue and those ones. And I know that lake formation has got those blueprints in there. It is really, really awesome. Awesome. Got it. Here we go.
It's a simple URL. I mean, you can paste it on the chat, but it's basically
here we go.
It's the AWS Amazon.com/solutions. And there you have actually the solutions library, which is quite interesting.
That's like getting those things set up together is awesome. It's like just like convenience things, like, for example, including the correct S3 bucket in the IAM policy that you set up for the role for the service to use. Because one of the things is you don't want to set up necessarily the services with full access to everything. We found that, it tends to be there multiple buckets involved, and just by listing it in the blueprint, it's just like click, click, done, which is awesome. Yeah.
There's a question from Bruno. Bruno asks, first of all, thank you for the compliment. Need to retrieve the entire data from a paginated API recursively. Is there anything that makes it easier for me to do this on Amazon? Is it an Amazon API or is it your own API?
I can answer a little bit on this, given that I just work with a paginated API.
Okay, good.
So paginations is one of those things. The concept itself is super simple. The how do I use it is, and what are the side effects, it tends to be very complex. Generally with the API, the thing that I found out, the one that I'm dealing with, is first do some kind of sort order. If you can do ascending by date, that'll be your best bet. The reason for this is that you've got a chunk of data. It's now being chucked into these different pages. If you don't have a sort order, the API might have some internal natural order, which isn't necessarily chronological. And then when more entries get added, that pushes the paging down. Because remember, you can't say, give me all the data in one go. You go page 1, page 2, page 3 with tokens and things. So what you want to do there with that public API is see if you can pass in some kind of sort by field that is preferably by record age. Because that way, the first few pages will always be the same. You get that chunk of data. And then near the end, when you get that last bit, that might be the snapshot of the most recent ones. And then if you want to keep constantly pulling the data, if you can get that going, that'll be the easiest way then to keep your data set up to date.
But here's my question. Would like, especially so Bruno mentioned it is a public API, would a tool like AppSync help here? Like Javier, I'm not sure if you are if you know this, but using AppSync as like a GraphQL front end to an API, would that help in retrieving these things? I mean, of course, if this is a one-off, then setting up AppSync would be too much. But
I don't think so, because remember, you still have the
pagination.
In AppSync you'll have to set up the how do I paginate this.
That's fine.
Because remember, AppSync you'll have to do the coding to make it understand, because pagination is often custom implementations.
Fair point. Yeah,
Yeah,
got
because
it.
I believe the question here, it's of course, he's consuming a public API, so he wants to read data from an API which is not in Amazon. And with AppSync, you will be fronting your own API, same thing you will do with API Gateway and so on. So for this particular use case, I would say just just use whichever you're using, Node.js or Python, very likely with a good library like the request library or whatever. And one thing you could try there, and I don't know if it makes sense for you, because one thing you might find depending on the API, if you have to retry on errors, if it takes a long time to download, it's like if it's like too big, it might be the case you cannot really use AWS Lambda for that. But something you could try is maybe play with step functions, because in step functions you could do something like, okay, define a workflow in which you start reading, and until you are not in the end, you keep reading in a loop. And if there is an error, you can retry several times. So maybe you want a way to orchestrate that, that pattern. It might be a good use case using step functions, because that way you can go for if the API is simple enough, if it's fast, if it's a simple thing, very likely AWS Lambda is the way to go. Just create a Lambda function, just put there your code and just do a loop, and that's it. But if you are getting into problems because of the connectivity issues, or because of timeouts or things like those, the workflow might be step functions might be a bit easier.
Also important on step functions, I just confirmed that there is actually a state like that. There's a wait state, because especially if it's a very large data set, you might be hitting API rate limiting. So you might want to slow down the rate at which you retrieve the data. And that's also building a state machine using step functions allows you to put in wait states. So you can say, page 1, wait 10 seconds, page 2, wait 10 seconds, etc. It might take longer to do, but in the end, you don't have to sit there and say, oh, build in complex logic. Oh, I got up to page 423. How do I continue from there? Sometimes it's just simpler putting a sleep statement in.
Yeah, fair point.
Let me quickly put that in here as well. Okay, got that, yeah. Yeah, so that's actually something I haven't built for a while. As in, it was interesting dealing with pagination, putting it and figuring out how to do it.
And I never dealt with pagination, to be honest, in myself. I mean, there's a good point why pagination exists, because having no pagination on API could cause a lot of problems. So there is absolutely a requirement for that. I've talked about pagination because if you use the AWS .NET SDK, the new feature is pagination, because apparently there was no pagination for .NET SDK 3.5 until last week. So yeah, so
that's
since
nice.
last week, since last week that was a thing, because I was mentioning that on one of the podcasts I did, and I tried to translate pagination to Serbian, and I don't know, like I know what pagination is, but there's no translation for it in my language. So yeah.
Actually, yeah, no. In the past, I had to deal with that a lot, because I used to do big data for a lot of customers around marketing and so on. So I will help them with social media statistics. So I will have to, for example, crawl the Facebook API, in which I will have to download the statistics of I don't know, a whole month, and then you have to go to the API and keep paginating a whole or a day of data. You have a large customer. A day of data is actually a lot of invocations, and you get all kind of issues: throttling, timeouts, authentication, network problems, and so on and so forth. And for that, it will use Airflow, which is a super overkill solution for this. But Airflow is a tool on big data to coordinate multiple services and to write workflows. So I will use Apache Airflow, which basically will allow me to do that, to create just a workflow. And if something goes wrong, I could just retry, and I could do backfilling. For example, if I had an issue yesterday and for some reason I have to recreate the whole data, I could do backfilling and call the API only for yesterday, and it's super interesting. So step functions gives you something similar. It's not as generic as Airflow, but it's fully managed. So that's why I suggested that solution, because to deal with things like timeouts and to deal with those kind of things, you can get throttling, things that you can get with the API. Having a workflow manager and step functions, I think it fits the bill there. It can be interesting, but yeah, pagination can actually be super tricky for many things. But you have to deal with that if you are working with large amount of data. There's no way around that.
Okay. Well, that's actually awesome. And that brings us to the last 30 seconds of today's stream. Yes, time flies when you're having fun, Darko.
No.
Don't worry, I'll chat to you afterwards. I might ask you to help me with a stream in 1 hour from now.
Sure. Absolutely.
Yeah, so if you do want to see more of AWS and streaming, we've got this series that runs every day at 1 p.m. Central European. So it's literally from now we'll be kicking it off. And today what we're going to be looking at is how to get the AWS CLI configured, look at role switching, deal with all the things like that, and how SDKs use that, aliases, etc. So it's all the working on how do you get started with using the AWS CLI SDKs and how that affects other systems that you work with. So if you're interested in that, come join us in 1 hour from now.
Yep.
Cool. One last question quickly before we wrap it up is from Bruno again, is that good approach for simple app that consumes endpoint API that generates a report. Now, my understanding here of Honeycode is that it can't make API calls externally because it's built on Excel sheets effectively when you design it for the data source.
Exactly. So it can build the front end, and it can build like kind of a data interaction, but it cannot invoke external APIs for data sources. So you build data sources within itself. At least that's how much I am aware of it as of now.
But we have got a webinar coming up on that, so keep an eye on Darko and my Twitter's, what do you call them? Twitter streams, Twitters, the Twitters. Let's leave it at that. Yes, the Twitters. For that, because we actually we're busy scheduling one as well for people to do that. And with that, I want to say thank you, Javier, Darko, and I'll thank you myself, I suppose, because this isn't my show. I was just the host for today. Thank you for joining us, and hope this was useful.
Promotion of your soul.
So yeah, thanks for joining, and we will see you next week again. This session runs every week with different people, so come back next week if you found us not as entertaining. Might be some better people. Cool. Adios, people. Thank you.
Ciao.